Around the mid-1880s, San Francisco had 320 laundries. Most of the laundries, 240 of them, were owned by citizens of China. Why were there so many laundries? Why did the Chinese own most of them? And why were Chinese citizens of China and not of the United States? Here are some answers. The first had to do with sexism. California had a large male population. It was mostly men who had to come to California to dig gold. Traditionally, in Europe and America, women were expected to wash clothes. Most American men would not wash their own clothing. But Chinese men were willing to wash clothes. It took very little money to open a laundry. According to the Constitution, anyone born in the United States is a citizen, no matter where he or she comes from. So why didn't the Chinese become citizens of the United States? A law passed back in 1890 said that only white people could become citizens, naturalized citizens. Here's a picture over here. It is in black and white, as you can tell. And its subtitle reads, Chinese Immigrants in San Francisco's Chinatown, California. This is taken from 1895. There's another subscript that is for the actual title, the text itself, not the photo. Even today, many countries do not let people of other ethnic backgrounds become citizens. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Americans struggled with the idea of citizenship. What makes a citizen? Who were women citizens? The freedom and openness of the United States was unusual. It still is. Most 19th century people thought that made our country special, but some people didn't like the idea at all. The law had been aimed at African-born persons. As it turned out, that old law was applied only to Asians, but that wasn't enough for the racists. They got mean-spirited laws passed to try and put the Chinese launderers out of business. The San Francisco ordinance said that all laundries must be placed in brick buildings. The law seemed to make sense. Laundries used fires to heat water, and a fire could spread rapidly in a city where the houses and stores, mostly built of wood, were crowded together. But then fire was used to heat and cook in almost every building in the city. Of the 320 laundries in San Francisco, 310 of them were in wooden buildings. The sheriff, a man named Hopkins, arrested almost all the Chinese owners of laundries. He arrested only one white laundry owner. One of the white laundry owners. That laundry was owned by a woman. So he arrested almost all the Chinese owners of laundries and only arrested one white person, despite the fact that they were breaking the law. Incidentally, that person was a woman. So they only arrested people of a different ethnic group and a woman. What kind of prejudice was that? Sheriff Hopkins did not bother the other 79 white men who ran laundries. The Chinese laundry owners went on trial and were convicted and fined. If they didn't pay the fines, they were sent to jail, and their businesses were closed as well. Was there anything they could do? Remember, they weren't citizens. One of the men Sheriff Hopkins arrested was the owner of the Whipadao laundry. The fire wardens had inspected the Whipadao laundry and certified that it was in good condition. If you decide to be a lawyer and you go to law school, you will probably study the case of Whipadao versus Hopkins. Here's something the law books will not tell you. There was never a Whipadao in the first place. Sheriff Hopkins made a mistake. He had assumed that the man who owned the Whipadao laundry was named Whipadao, but his name was actually Li Yik. Li Yik, okay? We don't know much about Li Yik, except that he came to California in 1861 and operated a laundry for 22 years. We also know that he was willing to fight for his rights. But what rights were his rights? He wasn't a citizen. Did he have the same rights as if he had been an American citizen? No one was sure. After he was arrested in 1886, Li Yik went to the other Chinese launderers. He persuaded them to help him hire a good lawyer. If he could get the verdict in his case changed, it would affect them all. They appealed his case. Do you know what that means? Here's an explanation of what an appeal is and a basic idea of how our judicial system works. It may come in handy. Most people go to court at some point in their life. To begin, there are two kinds of law cases, civil and criminal. Just suppose for a moment that you buy an expensive bicycle. You take it home and it isn't what you expected. You feel cheated. The bike dealer doesn't agree. He thinks you got exactly what you paid for. He's talking about value here. He won't take the bike back. If you can't settle the argument, you can go to court. You can sue the bike seller. If you do, that will make it a civil case. No criminal laws have been broken. It will probably be a judge who decides who is right, you or the bike dealer. However, in most cases, civil or criminal, you have a right to a jury trial. A jury is a group of citizens, ordinary people who listen to the evidence and decide what happened. They decide if someone is wrong or guilty of breaking a law. Then, in civil cases, the jury decides on the penalty. In criminal cases, if a person is convicted, the judge usually decides on the proper penalty. The Whipadao case was a criminal case because it was about San Francisco law. The case began in a local San Francisco court. We have local, state, and federal courts. Whipadao was the defendant, the person on trial, the other side. The San Francisco authorities were prosecuting the case. That made them the prosecutors. The judge and jury heard arguments by lawyers from both sides. They called witnesses, people who had information about the case. That continues on the next side. But I'm going to read this first. The jury decides on the facts of the case, and the judge decides on what laws apply to the case. I'm going to read this quickly too. So we have a graphite drawing of... Oh no, we have some technical difficulties. This... No, why is it doing that? Oh my lord. What if I do this? I don't know why it's going backwards. Why is it going backwards? Okay, give me a minute. Okay, I just had it, and then as soon as I clicked the record button, it moved. Okay, a garrison in Denver, Colorado in 1880. The Chinese were willing to work for low wages. One employer said, "I find this difference. The Chinamen will stay and work, but the white man, as soon as he gets only a few dollars, will leave." A person... Oh, sorry, there's a little thing on the side here. It says, oh... I promise the only thing I'm doing is moving the mouse. I'm not clicking anything. I don't know why it's doing that. A person born in another country and who then comes here, takes out citizenship papers, and becomes a citizen is a naturalized citizen. So a person who comes to the United States, takes out citizenship papers, and becomes a citizen is a naturalized citizen. And an ordinance is another word for a law, usually a local law. For example, you may have a local ordinance to stay at home. But we're not going to get into that today. Probably never, since this is about history. Then again, this is history. Okay. I'm trying to read this page. Give me a minute. Aha, I got it to work. Whipad's lawyer called the safety inspectors, but the law was clear. And, as you know, the San Francisco jury said that the Chinese launderers had broken the law. Whipad had to pay a fine or go to jail. After the decision is made, a case may be appealed to a higher court. Whipad's lawyer appealed. The case went to the California Supreme Court. Appeals courts do not hear witnesses. They do not have juries. They aren't like the courts you see on television. The job of the appeals court is to review the lawyer's arguments and see if the law has been applied properly in the lower court. The appeals court asks, has justice been served? The California Supreme Court agreed with the lower court. It said the decision in the Whipadao versus Hawkins was correct. The Chinese laundries were in wooden buildings, and wooden laundries were illegal. You can imagine how Whipadao and his friends felt. They still thought the city of San Francisco was being unfair. Don't worry, we'll get to that last little bit. That starts another sentence, but that continues on the next page, so I'm going to read the subtitles here first. So this drawing up here, I'm not going to go up because I'm afraid that the whole mouse is going to go out of control. That's what it seems to do. This drawing from the 1880s depicts the justices of the United States Supreme Court hearing a case. Just appreciate that for a moment, because that's made of graphite, like pencils. Pencils. Very talented. Well, not talented, skilled. In a criminal case, the prosecution may not appeal if it loses. No person may be tried twice for the same crime. That is called double jeopardy. And thankfully, we don't have to worry about this in our country. Okay. White owners were running laundries in wooden buildings too. Why was the city only picking on Chinese laundrymen? Li Yik decided to take his case to the highest appeals court of all, the U.S., the United States Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doesn't listen to all the cases that people want it to hear. It couldn't possibly do that. It selects cases carefully, and it tries to pick cases that will test important issues, especially constitutional issues. There were two issues in this case. The first was this: do the police have the right to enforce a law arbitrarily? That word means inconsistently, which means that if a police officer enforces a law arbitrarily, it does not enforce the law in the same manner to every person. One person may get off with, like a play. They might get off easy. Might be told to change it soon, within like a month. Another one might be told, these are just examples, but a Chinese person may be told that they're arrested right then. They're just arrested right then, which is not fair. That's not fair. It shouldn't be done differently if you're someone else. That just isn't fair. The second issue had to do with the rights of non-citizens. Should the law treat aliens, people who aren't citizens, the same way that it treats American citizens? This was an important case. Police departments in many states were interested. They didn't want their power limited. They wanted the power to treat aliens, those non-citizens, as they wished. It kind of sounds like being a king, like a mini king. Briefs, which are written legal arguments, were presented to the Supreme Court by Nebraska, Iowa, Indiana, Mississippi, New Jersey, Wisconsin, and Florida. They were all in support of Sheriff Hopkins. Can you guess what happened? Yeah. The sheriff and the states lost the argument. The Chinese laundrymen beat them. This is what the Supreme Court said explicitly. For no legitimate reason is this body, by its action, has declared that it is lawful for 80-odd persons who are not subjects of China to wash clothes for hire in wood-frame buildings, but unlawful for all subjects of China to do the exact same thing. The law was a law applied, quote, with an evil eye and an unequal hand, end quote. That, said the justices, was wrong. And, said the court, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution is not confined to the protection of citizens. It says, quote, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws, end quote. Within its jurisdiction. That means that all persons in the United States, citizens or not, are entitled to the same fair treatment. Li Yik and his friends had won a momentous victory. I was very worried we'd run out of time. I actually recorded this before and we did run out of time. Only allowed to record for 15 minutes on this form. Screencast-o-matic. Okay. So, 1. I wish you all a truly Whipadao and Chezzy day. 2. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Just please. Just listen. Serious. Anyway, I wish you all the best, and goodbye.